Hi there. Welcome to the Weekend Extra. I'm Liz Miller here with Pastor Todd.
How's it going?
Today we talked about stops along the way. That was kind of the series that we're going through. And tonight's message was be on your guard, stay the course. And I keep thinking like this is so timely for right now, right? Like all of us can get so whipped up, myself included, about what's going on. And I loved what you brought. So you read through Mark 13 and you kind of said like, this is not new. These hard things that we have, that we're up against, this is new. Jesus talked about this. And so I was wondering if maybe you could kind of just go through that and say some of those hard things that Jesus brought to our attention and said, don't be surprised.
Right. Well, I mean, if you look at Mark chapter 13, right off the bat, you look at the title of the chapter and you're just like, dun, 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 right? Destruction of the temple, end times. And we hear this conversation come up quite a bit, even in especially our world today, right? Because there's a whole bunch of things. But I really appreciated Jesus's tone here of how he was teaching the disciples. And so as you look through kind of the things that they were kind of like pre-warning the disciples, it's like, hey, look, many are going to come and try to deceive you. People are going to try to claim that they're the Messiah. But be on guard, right? Watch of that. He talks about the earthquakes and the famines and nations rising amongst nations. And it goes on to talk about even further like false prophets, even going so far to do miraculous signs and wonders. But he's like, be on guard of those things.
I find such comfort in that, and knowing like Jesus said, this is going to happen and you don't need to panic. You don't need to worry. Pay attention, care for those you love, look out for each other. But like, it's going to be okay. And we'll face persecution, right? Like, this is not, Jesus didn't say, like, believe in me and your life will be easy.
And I think that's the big thing out of this for the disciples. So the idea of stops along the way, right? In the teaching that Jesus was having with his disciples in this moment, this would have been really the first time that the disciples would have gotten a picture of persecution.
Okay.
Right?
I didn't think about that.
This would have been the first time really where they're starting to count the cost of what it's going to require to follow Jesus. They would have heard Jesus talk about how they need to deny themselves to follow them. They would have heard Jesus talk about the prediction of his death several times prior to this point. But really, when you start to unfold this chapter, this would have been the first time that the disciples really would have seen what it was going to cost to follow him.
Right. And they chose to because they found such hope in him. And I when you were talking tonight, I just kept thinking about this idea of like, we become what we behold. So am I going to behold what the world has to offer right now, what social media has to offer, what my friends who are like super angsty about the world? Because it's a hot mess right now, right?
So be it, right? It's appropriate at times, right? It's like,
or am I going to behold the hope that is found in the Lord? And I'm just kind of curious, so for just practically speaking, because that's what we do here on the Weekend Extras, talk about how we apply these things. What does that look like for you when you get caught up in like a social media situation or a friend or whatever?
Right. Our world is in our culture is very loud right now.
So loud.
Right. And so in these moments, I actually really appreciated where Jesus landed the teaching with the disciples.
Okay.
He's basically saying, hey, don't let them catch you sleeping. Stay awake.
Yeah.
Right. And so with that on guard mentality, right, I think the disciples were left with that fork in the road. And I think that's a great application point for us. Because as we're in that fork in the road of thinking, am I spiritually awake right now or am I spiritually sleeping? I think for the disciples, they had to figure that out for themselves to decide, am I going to follow Jesus even if all of this unfolds? Or am I going to allow those distractions to get in the way?
Right.
And I think with the social media post and with the everything with politics and literally the hatred that is taking place in our culture right now, in our world, we have to kind of put ourselves in that situation as well, kind of the fork in the road. Are we going to allow what I referred to in my message as the squawking geese? Right? Are we going to allow that to get the best of us and keep us from really truly following what Jesus has for us, right? So I pulled out different examples of hope. It's like, look, the nations need to hear the gospel first. The gospel is going to be presented before these things take place. he's saying, listen, as he talks to the disciples, I have prepared you with everything that you need, that you have what it takes. And I think as a Christ follower, when we cling to who he is,
Right.
When we are applying what his word says to our lives, as we're devoting ourselves to prayer, it's those practices that I think we can put ourselves in that situation where it's like, listen, he's given us what we need.
Right. Well, didn't he say, my peace I leave with you?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You are not of the world, you are with me. And so just remembering that as we go through each day, like, my peace I leave with you.
Yeah.
And choosing to shift our focus to him instead of the panicking, right? Because that's so easy. It's like you said, it's very loud. And so to know that whether we live or we die, we have hope as Christ followers.
Exactly right.
So,
and I think it's important that we remember that truth. And it's the hope that's ultimately going to get us through those difficult situations. But I just want to make note that it's important that we are linking arms with other people.
Right.
Right. And I think in a healthy context, the noise of social media, the noise of our culture and what's coming our way, I think we need to find like-minded people. Right. And so if you're a Christ follower, finding other people who are, striving to be like Jesus and love Jesus with everything they've got, right? If we can find that community where we can share life in those moments, so with the social media post or whatever difficult is thrown our way, to have that group of people where we can process it and really push into it, I think is so important.
I love that that's what you brought to our attention, because sometimes we do need a friend just to say, like, hey, whoa, now where are you looking?
Right? and maybe keep us on track sometimes, right? It's like when we start to wander a little bit, it's like, hey, let's reel back in, right?
We need
let's
each other.
Come back online. Yeah. So
I'm so glad that you brought that to our attention, just the practical aspects of how we live this out, right, day to day with each other, and choosing to put our hope in the Lord. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you next week. I'm Liz, and this is Pastor Todd.
Thanks, guys.